the history of American presidents, the blue-collar battle runs the spectrum. FDR was arguably the most pro-union president. He signed several bills aimed at empowering the worker, and one of his most recognizable slogans is seen on this famous poster. Now, Truman initially sided with union workers, and then he angered everyone when he took over the steel mills during the Korean War. And in a rare move at the time, Teddy Roosevelt invited labor leaders to the White House during a coal strike. And as for other presidents, union was a dirty word. Grover Cleveland, he sent the military to shut down a railroad strike. Reagan fired more than 11,000 air traffic controllers during a strike, a move that a current candidate, Tim Scott, says he admires. Now, fast forward to 2024, and the two frontrunners in that race for their party's nominations are using the current auto worker strike to flex their union muscle. Good evening, everyone. I'm AbbyPhillip, and one day after President Biden made his visit to the union picket line, his predecessor and rival is now in Detroit tonight. He's looking for votes, and if you look a little bit deeper there is a politically sound reason, perhaps, for this competition between the two candidates. Unions are popular. 2/3 of Americans say they approve of them. 3/4 side with the UAW workers in this strike against the big three car companies. And approval of unions, just in general, has actually risen in the past 15 years. But here is the interesting part about all of this. Back in 2020, Biden carried voters from union households over Trump by 16%. That is actually a wider margin than Hillary Clinton held over Trump in 2016. Now, here he was, that is Trump, just moments ago.
Instead of economic nationalism, you have ultra-left-wing globalism. They hate our country. And the workers of America are getting, to put it very nicely, screwed. You're getting screwed.
Union leaders, though, are pretty skeptical of Trump, and I'm being polite there. One UAW executive says, in part, quote, "Let me be blunt. Donald Trump is coming off as a pompous asshole, coming to Michigan to speak at non-union employers and pretend that it has anything to do with our fight at the Big Three. Where were his rallies for striking workers when we were on the picket line in 2019? Where are the jobs he promised to return to the U.S. while on the campaign trail in 2015? The proof is in the pudding." Joining me to discuss this is Oscar-winning documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. He is also a union supporter with some deep family ties to the UAW. Michael, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you.
You're getting screwed is the former president's message to the workers of America tonight. I imagine you may agree with him.
Well, only because we had to live through 4 years of Trump in the White House. I actually watched his speech tonight. I have to be honest, but I'm one of the few designated Trump watchers whenever he makes a speech, so everybody doesn't have to listen to it. There's a half a dozen of us that watch it, and then we report to others what happened. Mainly because it's more of a kind of a crime watchers thing. You got somebody that has entered our state. He's been indicted for different felonies with 91 counts, 91 crimes. You know, we don't just let anybody into Michigan. So it's like I and others, though, watch the speech, and basically I think that we don't have a whole lot to worry about, mainly because the majority of the country doesn't want him. They didn't want him in 16, lost the popular vote. They didn't want him in 20. He lost both. He lost the 2018 for the Republicans. He lost that, the midterm. And you know, if everybody gets out to vote, that's usually our problem on our side, getting everybody out to vote. If everybody votes, the majority of Americans don't agree with him, don't want him. And it was such an embarrassment. They never pulled back and showed a really wide shot because there were so few people in this non-union auto parts facility in Detroit. This whole anti-union thing. He's there at an anti-union place with that supplies auto parts to cars.
What do you think about, though, this
really
idea, Michael, that what do you think about the idea that the union leadership, you know, they're understandably skeptical of Trump. But what about union members? Here's what the Trump campaign says. They say there's a disconnect between the political leadership of some of these labor unions and the working middle class employees that they purport to represent. Do you think that, for example, UAW President Shawn Fain speaks for all rank and file members?
Absolutely. He has such support. It's amazing. He's the first UAW president actually elected by the entire membership. All 150,000 UAW members got to vote. That is, you would think that's common in a union, but that often doesn't happen. And for the UAW, what you used to do in the factory, you would nominate your people from your factory to go to the national convention, and then that convention would elect the UAW leader. He's elected for the first time by everybody. And Biden showing up yesterday, I mean, that was so historic. I don't know if this has been reported properly. I mean, you just did a great job at the opening going through our history of presidents. Most of them, with the exception of Roosevelt and maybe one other, did not do well by working people. And for Biden to come there and be there at that picket line, it was so moving. And so, and the criticism is he was only there for 15 minutes. You know, they were so nervous yesterday. I'm just going to say this, and I hate to put this out there, but they wouldn't even tell your reporters, the press reporters that were on Air Force One, where they were going. They didn't know what city of Michigan they were going to land in. They didn't know what factory they were going to go to. They had to keep this all for security reasons, very, very quiet, because Trump and his people have managed to turn violence into part of the political structure of this country. And what they did on January 6th and what his support of it and his encouraging of it, they had to be so careful yesterday that there was a pool reporter. Even CNN really didn't know which. In fact, everybody went to that one
Michael,
in Wayne, Michigan.
Can I ask you?
Didn't go there. Yeah.
Last week we spoke. You were on the show, and you said that Trump's visit to Michigan was a stunt. President Biden announced that he was visiting after Trump did. It seemed almost in response to Trump. How is that visit not a stunt as well?
I think it just seemed that way. I think they were planning this for some time, and Trump, because on some level, in terms of the way that he operates like a snake, he's not stupid. Snakes aren't stupid, and so he figured out, I need to get the jump on Biden. So, he's so much younger than Biden, so he was able to move quicker.
What about? I want to ask you about one of the core demands here, which is wages, really, at the core of this. So Ford, for example, currently spends about $64 per hour per worker in the United States. That includes wages and benefits. Meanwhile, foreign automakers and non-union shops, they spend between $45 and $55 an hour. So some analysts estimate that if the unions get that 40% wage hike that they've been pushing for, that could double the cost per worker for these unions. Is there any concern that this could actually end up pushing auto production overseas where perhaps labor is cheaper?
No, that has been a huge failure. You have done your own stories on CNN on how many American companies have come back from China to this country so that the things are built right. So that's a big red herring. And those numbers, when they say wages, those are not the auto workers' wages, this inflated, crazy number. They throw everything into that. Every possible thing. There was somebody on one of your shows here yesterday pointing out how much of each car goes to pay healthcare. Whereas in Canada, the GM factories in Canada, the Ford factories in Canada, the total amount of the price of each car for healthcare is, practically zero, because it has free universal healthcare in their country, unlike us. So the corporations, GM, they've been building so many factories over the years in Canada because it's cheaper for them to do it there because they have free universal healthcare. And yes, the companies in Canada have to pay a tax for that healthcare, but they would rather pay the Canadian tax and have everybody covered.
Should that
So they don't have to
40%
cover any of it.
should that 40% raise be a red line for negotiators?
Look, I'm not going to say what the UAW should or shouldn't do. It's their union. I belong to the Writers Guild and the Screen Actors Guild, so it's not for me to say. I think they know. I heard Sean Fain make this, and you can. They said they were going to put this up on their site. You can go to there, and you can go there, and you can see that what they're claiming in this 40% raise, that actually, if the automakers gave this 40% raise and brought back their pensions and brought back, and didn't have the two-tier thing where new hires are paid $15 or $16 an hour, and the old timers are getting $30 an hour. That make it even. You're doing the same exact job. You should be paid the same exact wage. If they did that, if the automakers did that, and the car companies did not raise the price of a car by a single dime, they would actually not only be able to afford that, but still make their huge profits, which they've made almost $30 billion since the beginning of this year alone, $30 billion in profits. So they're making all this up to scare people. It doesn't work. Your reporters, they go and talk to the local owners of businesses aren't they hurting now because of the strike? They're all supportive of the strike because they know something apparently these wealthy capitalist CEOs don't understand. If you pay the workers a just wage, if you pay them more money, what do they do with that money? Buy a yacht? Buy stocks and bonds? No, they spend it.
And the workers,
they give the money back to your companies.
And to that point, these workers have said they want to be able to afford the cars that they are in the factories building, actually. Michael Moore, thanks as always for joining us tonight on all of this.
Thank you. And can I just finish one sentence I didn't get to finish here? That when they say that Biden was only there 15 minutes, it was a historic 15 minutes. The Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln was 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, and it is still renowned as maybe the greatest speech of all time. Biden did an amazing thing, and I support the union and hope they get everything they deserve.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me say that. Thank you.